Hi everybody and welcome to Simply Scuba. So looking at BCDs. Now there are a few different basic styles of BCD and each of them has their pros and cons for different styles of divers. Now that's the tricky part because some are going to be better for one diver than another, and that's why we still have all of these different shapes, and hopefully by the end of this video you should be able to make a better, more informed decision when you're looking in investing in a BCD. A jacket style BCD is what most divers start off training in. It's a BCD where the inflation bladder covers most of your back and it extends around in front of your waist as well. Some divers prefer a jacket style BCD because it kind of covers you up and it sort of wraps you up, gives you a nice kind of safety kind of feel. They also have decent pockets to keep things tucked away in. Depending on how your weights are set up, they can hold you in a decent position in the water. That gives you full control of your body position when you're in the water and when you're on the surface as well. They do have a lot of movement in them. If you only have a small amount of gas in your BCD and you kind of twist over, it can migrate that gas around inside the bladder and it can get trapped in some corners. So if you try and dump it, you can't because it's kind of trapped in a corner sometimes. When it's fully inflated, it can limit pocket space because the bladder is underneath the pocket. So if that's fully inflated, it limits how much space you have in your pocket and of course what you can fit inside of there. That's why some BCDs like the Mars Quantum, they actually have a flexible material on the outside of the pocket that actually allows it to stretch. That way if you have something in your pocket and you then inflate the BCD, it still allows it to inflate without crushing whatever it is inside. Wing style BCDs eliminate that kind of wraparound section in front of you and only have buoyancy around your back, around the cylinder. This ensures a pretty horizontal diving position, but because you don't have quite as much like material wrapped around you, you do feel a bit more free and better flexibility around your shoulders, which, if that's what you're into, it's a real nice sense of freedom. But if you kind of like that hug of a BCD, you don't get quite the same experience. Because the bladder and the harness are a bit more separate entities on a wing style BCD, you tend to get a greater amount of adjustment in the shoulder and the waist straps. So if you tend to find it hard to find a BCD that fits you properly, a wing style BCD should be able to offer you a better fit. There's just simply longer straps to allow for different body shapes. There's still that rumour that wing BCDs hold you face down on the surface, only I've never really had a problem with that, and after years and years of diving wing BCDs, all you really need to do is just deflate it a little bit, not completely full, so that it kind of sinks down into the water. Otherwise, it's only doing exactly what it's designed to do, hold you in that horizontal position, which is a great diving position. But when you're on the surface, yeah, just deflate it a little and you can just sit upright perfectly fine. Hybrid BCDs are basically jacket BCDs, but with kind of sections down the back that expand either side of your cylinder, a bit like a wing. When it's deflated, those little kind of hybrid wingy sections, they kind of tuck down. When it's inflated a little bit, a few little puffs of gas, the gas collects in those wings to give you a decent horizontal diving position, just like a wing, and then when it's fully inflated, it inflates around you and kind of holds you in a decent position. It's kind of the best of both worlds. Much like a jacket BCD, the main downsides are trapping gas in certain corners. The weight, they do have a lot more material than wing style BCDs, but they're a good like middle ground. If you like that kind of wrap around, but you do want more of a horizontal position in the water, try and look for a hybrid BCD, something that has extra sections that basically wrap either side of your cylinder. Backplate BCDs all tend to be wings. Instead of one complete BCD that's all stitched together and just comes in a bag, a backplate setup is all separate parts. You get the harness, the backplate, and the wing that you all kind of put together yourself, and the buoyancy style tends to be a donut style wing. Whilst recreational BCDs are all designed for single cylinders, backplate wings give you the choice of singles or twins. A solid metal backplate is the perfect mounting platform for either singles or twins, but you do need to assemble it yourself. Once you get into it, once you get into backplates and wings, that is actually a huge benefit because you can have all of the features that you want on a BCD, but none of the extra bits that you don't want. You only assemble whatever you want on your BCD. And if one specific part wears out, you just replace that one specific broken part, not the entire thing. With most recreational BCDs, if you break one part, because the whole thing is stitched together, in a lot of cases you have to replace the entire thing, which isn't really cost effective. Sidemount BCDs are the specialist. We've gone through quite a few generations and styles and finally settled on pretty much the most efficient now, but sidemount BCDs are typically, they have a diamond shaped wing that collects most of the buoyancy in the small of your back. They tend to be quite form-fitting and hug around the body to the point where they often have extra straps that wrap around your waist to kind of hold the sides of the bladder close to your body. Because they originated in cave diving, it's great for flexibility, so you can move cylinders around, and really tight spaces. They don't really want big bulky gear that can catch on things and slow them down inside of a cave, so they're really form-fitting and close to your body. They're going to have attachment points on the shoulders and the waist parts of the harness for mounting cylinders underneath your arms, and they're going to have weight pouches down your spine. These do sort of side mount very, very well, but you can't mount anything straight down your back, and it's not really something that you can pick up and dive with without any sort of training. Side mount is a bit more complicated than just slinging a single tank on your back and jumping in the water, so they do take a bit more training, but if you want side mount, if you want that flexibility, you kind of have to go down the side mount route. Most BCDs just have a traditional inflator on the end of a corrugated hose that goes over your left-hand shoulder with a pair of buttons on it. This is tried and tested and pretty universal. You'd be hard-pushed to find a modern scuba diver out there that doesn't know how a standard inflator works. Sidemount BCDs usually have this style of inflator as well, only the hose actually rotates underneath your arm and then clips to your chest instead of over your shoulder. There are two different hose diameters though, that corrugated hose. So whilst these inflators are pretty easy to repair and replace, you do need to be sure that you get the right hose diameter when you are trying to replace it. Each manufacturer who makes BCDs, they have their own alternate design. They're kind of rare, but they do exist, and they're definitely worth looking at. I mean, Aqualung has the i3, Mares has the air trim, but instead of a loose hose over your shoulder, your regulator hose runs down your back and then leads to a switch on your left-hand hip that inflates and deflates the BCD. It's either like a toggle switch or two buttons, more like a conventional BCD inflator. There's going to be cables on the inside running throughout the BCD that open up the dump valves over your shoulder, down in your kidney. Whenever you press the deflate button, they all open. These systems, they're really nice and clean and very intuitive once you get used to them. You don't need to worry about finding your inflator wherever it's flopped off to and then holding it up to deflate. You just push a button, it is always in the same place. The main downside to these sort of i3s or air trims, whatever they call it, is that it's just that they're different. And most people learn on that traditional corrugated hose, and as divers we often don't like change and they can be quite fiddly if something does break. I definitely recommend trying them out because they're different and they are very intuitive, and it's quite a nice dive, but yeah, they are just that little bit different, so it's harder for them to integrate themselves into modern diving. The most important thing when you're choosing a BCD is that you understand what a BCD is designed for. It's designed for either singles, twins, or side mounts. Most recreational BCDs are for singles, so if you choose a jacket, a wing, or a hybrid, it'll do singles really great. The more you pay, the more comfortable it will be. You get softer materials and more ergonomic designs in the buckles and everything. You're just going to get more features. For twin cylinders, you're going to need a bladder that's wider to allow for the size of twin cylinders side by side, but you can't use that twin wing for singles because it will wrap up around the singles as soon as you put any air into it. And side mount only really does side mounts. There's no magical BCD that kind of does all three. The best would be side mounts because you can mount a single cylinder or as many tanks on either side as you like, but they'll all be on your sides. You can't really mount them straight down your back. Personally, I dive a backplate and wing setup. I like how personal and custom it can be, and that you can chop and change it to suit your needs for the dive at hand. They may seem complicated or daunting when you very first see them, but they are pretty comfortable and they're pretty straightforward as well once you get your head around them. There are plenty to choose from on simplyscuba.com. There will be links down in the description below to some of my favorite BCDs right now. We have some great 0% finance options and tracked shipping as well. For your order, let me know what your preferred style of BCD is and why, or what style of BCD you just can't get on with down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.